Hey, record loving friend. This is Brian from tokyorecordstyle. I hope you're doing fine. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. This is a space where I talk about records and photography and Tokyo and fashion loosely and lots of other things that I care about. And I have brought up a couple of times on the channel AI, okay? So the jury's still out. We're still all trying to make sense of it. I'm using it every day, probably like you. I'm leveraging it to make all kinds of work tasks easier while also being mindful not for it to take away from me the opportunities to really flex my creative muscles and write creatively and try to, not just give up on those skills. But at the same time, I see the use of making those processes go faster. My first real sort of impactful encounter with AI was about a year ago, where I entered into a pop-up photo gallery that was a group show, and I went around and saw the different sections on the walls, and I thought, oh, this is nice, and oh, that person's different than this person, and there was quite a bit of interesting stuff. And by the time I got to the end, I came to a series of portraits. Wonderful portraiture by a female photographer who was there to talk about her work. And I was thinking, wow, these are excellent portraits. And that's kind of my wheelhouse. And I said, wow. And I noticed it was this couple that was repeating through all the photos. And okay, this is when they must have been young. And this is when they must have been middle-aged. And this is when they're old. And wait a second, this is when they're baby. Like, wow, these guys have been together forever. And they look great in all of these photos. And it dawned on me, wait a second here. And I looked closer and I just started thinking, okay, all right, what's going on here? And she said, yeah, this is AI generated. And here are the prompts that I use and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at the rest of the show and I said, is it all AI? And she said, yeah, that's the concept of the show. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have genuinely appreciated and liked this stuff until I knew it was generated by AI. And suddenly I had to face the fact that, did I like something that was created by AI? Would I stop liking it now that I knew that it was created by it? Did that matter? And honestly, the feeling of feeling hoodwinked really was sour, and I didn't like the way that it felt. And I went home and I sort of wrote this little manifesto about how if I ever found out that something was made with AI, something that, was presented itself as not made by AI, even though technically that wasn't the case. I just simply didn't read the explanation well enough. But if I found out that something had been made by AI, even if I initially appreciated it, I would declare that I would fall out of love with it. Now, I've had a couple of my friends say, that doesn't make any sense, Brian. And I said, well, it makes sense to me, and I'm sticking to it. And I had that thought for a few weeks, and I kind of went head to head, and I sort of died on the hill of defending that line of thinking. And I still don't know really what to make of it, but another little chestnut that I've sort of come to just barely crack open is that these AI tools and language models that we're using are really not something that are outside of us, but they are an amalgamation of all of us. So in a sense, AI is nothing really more than, a collective us. So that kind of somehow put some humanity back into these artworks that I was quick to dismiss as, made by robots or something like that. But I really still don't know what to make of it. But this was a little thought process that I'm still facing and sort of balancing on this precarious teeter-tottering of what to make of all this AI stuff. Yes, it's amazing. Yes, it's going really fast. And yes, I don't really know how it's going to work for us all moving forward. With little kids, in my life, with my own family, and my kids will have grown up their entire lives essentially with AI, it'll be a little bit a little bit strange to think that I had a life where there weren't, things doing everything for me and thinking for me and all of these kinds of things. And I actually have to cherish that. And if you're of my generation, you probably are thinking the same thing. Having said that, I actually came across one of these AI podcast generator things this week. The Notebook LM came out. I don't really know much about it, but somebody threw it at me this week and they explained to me that I could basically feed this AI various sources, different websites, different videos, and it would be able to take 3 or 4 sources and synthesize them and spit out a sort of easy to follow along podcast. It would be a quick and easy way to digest a lot of information. I think this has been out for a while, but I think this Notebook LM one is the new fandangled one. So I actually thought, I wonder what would happen if I fed this Notebook LM my introduction YouTube video of like welcome to my channel video, as well as my website. Now, just a little bit of background about Tokyo Record Style for those of you who are just joining. It's just basically a street photo project where I spot people on the streets of Tokyo and I photograph them and I have a little interview with them and I go home and I write stories and I post these stories about record collectors and record loving and music loving in Tokyo. So I gave it my entire website, which has all of my essentially Instagram posts. It's just a doubling up essentially and a bit more of my Instagram stuff, which are these, I don't know what they are, 2,000 characters, the limit on Instagram. And I tend to kind of stick somewhere around there. And it's I think 500 of these pieces. So I gave Notebook LM my website and I gave it one video from my YouTube channel. And I wanted to share with you what it spit out because I was pretty impressed. I was a little bit surprised. I have to admit my ego was a little bit inflated by it. It was like they were speaking as if they were like interviewing me or they'd read about me in a newspaper. I was the hot new thing. They kind of spoke about it in that way. And I want to share it with you and I want to hear what you think about this. So without further ado, this is the podcast that I generated from 2 sources, my website and my introduction video on my YouTube channel from Tokyo Record Style. So here you go. Have a listen.
This is really cool. When you sent in this Tokyo Record Style project, I was like, what is this? Music, community, street photography. It's like all the things, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it seems like something right up your alley.
So Tokyo Record Style. Imagine you're walking down the street in Tokyo and someone stops you and wants to take your picture, but it's because you're holding a record store bag.
I love that. Not because, an algorithm thinks you like a certain type of music, but because you're holding like actual vinyl.
Yeah, and the guy behind the camera, his name's Brian, he lives in Tokyo, and he's kind of turned this love of music, especially vinyl, into this really unique project. And I love that he's clear that it's not about him being some arbiter of style. He actually says on his website, he's like, I don't even think I have style. But he loves seeing how other people express themselves.
It's such a cool concept, this visual tapestry of music and self-expression against this really cool backdrop of Tokyo street scenes.
It's really neat. And that's where I think this idea of the human algorithm that he talks about is so interesting. It's so much more authentic. I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like you were saying, it's organic.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, are people craving this in a world of algorithms and recommendations? Like, are we missing that real human connection, that serendipity?
It's really interesting. And the cool thing is he hasn't just taken photos. He's actually created this whole community around Tokyo Record Style.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about it. It's gone beyond just a project. It's a living, breathing community.
So there's this thing he does, Tokyo Record Style Day. What is that exactly?
Okay, so imagine this. You and a bunch of other music lovers, all hitting the streets of Tokyo, going to these amazing independent record stores.
That sounds like so much fun. No algorithms, just like a pure shared love of music.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, everyone gets together with their favorite record they found, and they take a group picture.
I saw those on the website. There's this real sense of camaraderie. And then there's the podcast and DJ event, Top 5 Records. What a great name. They have guests on talking about their top 5 albums, but It's based on these really interesting themes, like top 5 albums for a road trip or top 5 albums you'd listen to on a rainy day.
I love that. It's tapping into that universal experience of music,
Yeah.
Like how certain songs just transport us back to a certain time and place, or how music can completely change our mood.
It's amazing, right? And it's not just happening offline either. Brian has a website, a Patreon, even an Amazon wish list for the project.
He's really figured out how to leverage the internet to connect with people. It makes you think, what if other cities did this? Like London record style or New York City record style. What would that look like?
What a cool idea. The community aspect is really cool, but I think it's the individual stories that really get me. The photos and the interviews, they're like these little windows into people's lives.
It's true. You get this glimpse into their world, and it's all through their taste in music. Like that story about Brian's friend Freddie.
Oh yeah, Freddie. The one where Brian left his entire record collection with him when he moved to Tokyo.
Yeah, it makes you think about the things we own
Right.
and the stories behind them.
Absolutely. And I love the story about Brian stopping the K-pop band on the street. He didn't even know who they were.
It's just this reminder that music really can bring people together.
Yeah.
You have this global phenomenon like K-pop. But in that moment, it was just about the music.
It's so true. And speaking of connecting with people from all over, I noticed there were a lot of travelers in the photos and videos.
Right. It's like these record stores become destinations. People come from all over the world to experience them.
It's amazing. I don't know about you, but this whole Tokyo record style thing has really got me thinking. It's like in this world of algorithms and curated content, it's so easy to forget the power of just putting yourself out there. Connecting with people in real life, discovering new things organically. I think we could all use a little bit of that in our lives.
I totally agree.
So maybe that's the takeaway here. What's your Tokyo record style? What's the thing you're passionate about that could connect you with your community? You never know what you might discover.
Wow. Right? Isn't that insane? Kind of speechless. I kind of don't know what to make of that. It's just absolutely bonkers. And the fact they're both like, yeah, and no algorithms, right? Like, he's so down with algorithms, like the human algorithm, Like, oh God, maybe I shouldn't say that so much. But here we are. I'm taking comfort in the thought that all the likes and the and the knows are very much probably pulled from my very language contents that I put out there into the web. So, okay, Brian, it's a synthesis of all of humanity. It's not the AI overlords taking over. It's us. It's our shared collective humanity. And I'm gonna try to keep on with that line of thought. This has been a little bit of another stair in this staircase that it keeps going faster and higher and quicker, and it's a bit overwhelming, but this is the brave new world we're living in. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't really know what more to say about it. I will continue updating you on my thoughts on AI, how they might connect with Tokyo record style. They pulled out all the things, the little nuggets, or many of them at least. They talked about my Tokyo record style day where I go to the record shops with my buddies. They talked about top 5 records and the funny themes that we talk about, like top 5 records for a Monday morning or whatever it was that they used. And they also talked about, I don't know, just the authentic experience of records that we all kind of appreciate, the tactile physicality and authenticity. And, wow, it's just pretty remarkable that it's picking up on those things. There's probably a couple other things that I was like, wow, my goodness. Okay, tell me what you think. Are you anti-AI? Are you using AI every day? How has AI filtered into your lives? I'm really curious to know how people are using it. I literally use it all the time, every day. I make a conscious effort to use it in such a way that I won't lose my edge, I really want to keep my edge. It's what makes me who I am, I feel like. And I don't really want to lose that. So I'm mindful that I don't miss the chance to be able to use my creativity at full throttle. And that's what I kind of worry about the most about this AI thing, is that if the next generation of people online and content creators and just artists in general, if they don't get to have the same creative experiences that I got to have and that maybe you got to have, where does that put them? So I hope and I'm confident and optimistic that it'll all work itself out somehow, but let's continue checking it out. I will leave a link to Notebook LM in the show notes. I don't need to leave a copy of this audio piece because it's here in the video. You can simply rewind and listen to it again. Go to Notebook LM, and if you're so inclined, plug in a source from here, maybe your YouTube channel, maybe your homepage or your something you've written, and see what it comes up with for you. And if it comes up with something really interesting, drop a link to it down below and I will have a look, and maybe we can think of some creative way to compile these ideas. Okay, have a great day, night, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And until next time, I will see you at the record store. Bye.